October 1941, the Eastern Front. Deep behind the German lines, a Wehrmacht soldier is trying to sleep. He is buried in a frozen trench. He is surrounded by the most advanced war machine in history, but he is terrified. He isn't afraid of the Soviet tanks. He can hear those coming from miles away. He isn't afraid of the artillery. He knows the rhythm of the shelling. He is afraid of the soft rustling sound in the dark. It sounds like a broomstick sweeping the sky. And then the earth explodes. They call them the Nachthexen, the night witches. The Germans believe the Soviets are giving their pilots pills to make them see in the dark. They believe these pilots are inhuman criminals. If a German soldier shoots one down, he is automatically awarded the Iron Cross. But they are not criminals, and they are not men. To understand the nightmare, you have to understand the desperation. It is the darkest hour of the war for the Soviet Union. The German army is at the gates of Moscow. The Red Air Force has been obliterated on the ground. Russia needs every pilot it can find. Enter Marina Reskova. She's a celebrity. A record-breaking navigator, the Soviet Amelia Earhart. She receives thousands of letters from women across the Soviet Union. We want to fight. We can fly. Give us a plane. Reskova goes directly to Stalin. She uses her famous leverage. She demands the formation of all female combat regiments. October 8, 1941, Stalin signs Order 0099. 3 female air regiments are formed: the 586th Fighter Regiment, the 587th Dive Bomber Regiment, and the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. Thousands of women volunteer, university students, factory workers, teenagers. They are sent to the Engels Flight School. They expect to fly the newest fighters, the Yaks, the MiGs. But when the women of the 588th arrive, they look at the tarmac in disbelief. They are not given warplanes. They are given this, the Polikarpov Po-2, a crop duster. Designed in 1928 as a training plane, it is made of plywood and canvas. If you poke it hard enough with a screwdriver, you will punch a hole right through the fuselage. It has an open cockpit. No glass, no heating. It has no radio. It has no armor plating. And its top speed is slower than a First World War fighter. The men of the Red Air Force laugh at them. They call the plane a kukuruznik, a corn cutter. They ask the women, "You are going to fight the Luftwaffe in that? You are going to fight the Messerschmitts in a kite made of fabric?" The women do not laugh. They paint the number 588 on the side. They accept the mission. They realize that if they are going to survive in these flying coffins, they cannot fight like men. They cannot use speed, they cannot use armor. They have to use fear. The sun goes down, the nightmare begins. The German Luftwaffe rules the skies. Their planes fly at 400 miles per hour. The Soviet Po-2 flies at 90. On paper, it should be a massacre. But when the German aces try to hunt the night witches, they discover a physics problem. The Po-2 is too slow. Its maximum speed is lower than the German fighter's stall speed. If a German pilot slows down enough to aim at the witch, his engine stalls and he falls out of the sky. He has to make high-speed passes. And the women of the 588th know this. They use the plane's weakness as a shield. They fly at treetop level. They weave through ravines. They turn so tight that the fast German planes overshoot them constantly. It is a deadly game of cat and mouse, where the mouse moves in slow motion. But their greatest weapon is silence. This is the tactic that earns them their name. They approach the German lines at a high altitude, and then, miles from the target, they cut the engine. They glide, like ghosts. The only sound is the wind whistling over the canvas wings and the bracing wires. To the terrified soldiers below, it doesn't sound like a plane. It sounds like the sweeping of a witch's broom. They have no bomb sights, they don't need them. They glide so low they can almost see the faces of the enemy. They pull a release wire by hand, the bombs fall, and only then, when the chaos erupts, do they restart the engine. It is psychological torture. The Germans cannot sleep. They cannot light fires. They spend every night staring at the black sky, waiting for the whoosh. But the Germans aren't the only enemy. The winter of 1942 is brutal. The Po-2 has an open cockpit. There is no heater, there is no glass canopy. The women fly in temperatures of -30 degrees. If they touch the metal of the plane with a bare hand, their skin tears off. They fly without radios, so they cannot call for help. They fly without radar, navigating only by stopwatch and map. And they fly without the one thing every other pilot has: parachutes. The Po-2 is so underpowered that it can barely carry the weight of the bombs. A parachute weighs too much, so they leave them behind. It is a stark, terrifying calculation. If the plane catches fire, if the wings are shot off, there is no escape. They carry a pistol instead. For the night witches, the choice is simple: complete the mission or burn with the plane. They prefer death to capture. And yet, night after night, they climb back into the cockpits. For a normal bomber pilot in World War II, a mission is a long haul. You fly for hours, drop your bombs, come home, sleep. For the Night Witches, a mission is just the first lap of a marathon. Because the Po-2 can only carry 2 bombs at a time, they have to go back. Again and again. Nadezhda Popova, one of the most famous pilots, once flew 18 missions in a single night. She lands, she doesn't even turn the engine off. While the propeller is still spinning, the ground crew, also women, rush out. They drag 200-pound bombs through the snow. They lift them by hand and hook them under the wings. They refuel the plane, and 3 minutes later, Popova is back in the air. 18 times. It is a test of endurance that pushes the human body to the breaking point. But the Germans are learning. They realize they can't shoot the witches down with speed, so they build a trap, the Flak Circus. Searchlights are arranged in a circle. When a Po-2 enters the circle, the lights snap on simultaneously. The pilot is instantly blinded. The canvas wings glow white in the light, making a perfect target. It happens on a night in 1943. 4 planes are caught in the web. The women on the ground watch in horror as their friends burn in the sky. They have no parachutes. They see the plane spiral down. That night, the regiment loses 4 crews. 8 women. The barracks are quiet. Bunks are empty. But the next night, they don't stop. They develop a new tactic. They fly in pairs. The first plane acts as bait. She flies loudly. She draws the lights. She dances with death. While the Germans are distracted trying to kill the bait, the second plane glides in from the darkness above. Silent. She drops her bombs directly onto the searchlights. They blow out the lights. They rescue their sister. And they disappear back into the night. The Germans are furious. They are being humiliated by students and factory workers and crop dusters. And the legend grows. 1944 turns to 1945. The tide of the war has turned. The Red Army is pushing west, and the Night Witches are pushing with them. They have flown over the Caucasus, over the Crimea, over Poland, and now they are flying over Germany itself. They have flown 23,000 sorties. They have dropped 3,000 tons of bombs. 23 of their pilots have been awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union. Nadezhda Popova, Yevgenia Zhigulenko, Irina Sabrova, names that became legends. When the war ends in May 1945, the 508th is just 40 miles from Berlin. They have survived the impossible. But their final battle is one they didn't expect, the battle for recognition. The Great Victory Parade is held in Red Square. The heroes of the war march before Stalin, but the Night Witches are missing. They are not invited. The reason given is insulting. Their planes are too slow to keep up with the parade formation. Their marching is not manly enough. After everything they did, after the frostbite, the fire, and the blood, they are told to stay home. Stalin disbands the regiment 6 months later. He tells them to go back to being mothers and wives. They are grounded, but they do not forget. Every year, for decades, they meet on the steps of the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. They wear their medals, the heroes of the Soviet Union. They tell the stories of the nights when they ruled the sky, of the nights when they terrified the Wehrmacht. Nadezhda Popova lived to be 91. Before she died, she said, "At night sometimes I look up at the dark sky, and I close my eyes, and I can still remember the sound, the Night Witches, the only thing the German army ever feared in the dark. We were just girls, but we wanted to defend our country. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh." We know the story, but to truly respect the 588th, we have to respect the machine. The Polikarpov Po-2 is often called the worst plane of World War II, but in the hands of the Night Witches, it was a masterpiece of accidental engineering. Consider the stealth. In 1942, the Germans began using radar to track Soviet bombers, but radar works by bouncing radio waves off metal objects. The Po-2 was made of plywood and canvas. It was essentially a flying piece of furniture. On German radar screens, it was almost invisible. They were the world's first stealth bombers, not by advanced technology, but by being so primitive that technology couldn't see them. Then, there is the speed trap. The German aces, flying the Bf 109 and Focke-Wulf 190, were trained to hunt fast targets. When they attacked a Po-2, they faced a deadly paradox. The top speed of the Witch, 94 mph, was slower than the stall speed of the German fighter, 120 mph. If the German pilot slowed down enough to aim, he would fall out of the sky. If he kept his speed up, he only had a split second to fire before zooming past. The women knew this. They flew close to the ground, forcing the Germans to dive. Many German aces, fixated on the kill, dove too steep, stalled, and smashed into the trees while the corn cutter buzzed away. But the plane extracted a terrible price from its pilots. The Po-2 was an open cockpit. There was no protection from the elements. The women flew at night, often in sub-zero temperatures. The wind blast froze their corneas. Many pilots suffered from night blindness and deteriorating vision because their eyes were constantly exposed to freezing wind and the flash of explosions. And they carried no parachutes. Until 1944, the weight of a parachute, about 20 pounds, was considered too heavy. It was replaced with an extra 20 pounds of bombs. The logic was brutal. Better to kill 10 more fascists than save one pilot. The women accepted this logic. They sat on their navigation maps to protect them from shrapnel coming from below. It was their only armor. It is also important to remember how unique the 588th was globally. In America, women formed the WASPs, Women Air Force Service Pilots. In Britain, they formed the ATA, Air Transport Auxiliary. These women were brave. They ferried planes. They tested fighters. They died in accidents. But they were strictly forbidden from combat. They were not allowed to fire a gun. Only the Soviet Union put women in the cockpit, gave them bombs, and sent them to the front line to kill. The 588th remains the only all-female regiment in history to conduct a sustained bombing campaign. They dropped 23,000 tons of munitions. They produced 23 heroes of the Soviet Union. They were not an experiment. They were a weapon. The Germans called them Nachthexen, night witches. It was meant to be a slur. It was meant to dehumanize them, to make them into monsters. But the women of the 588th didn't see it that way. They loved it. They adopted the name. They realized that in war, being a monster is a compliment. It means the enemy is afraid of you, and the enemy was terrified. By the end of the war, the regiment had flown over 30,000 missions. They dropped 23,000 tons of explosives. They did it without radios, without radar, without parachutes. They did it in planes made of wood and canvas that were obsolete before the war even started. But the cost was high. 32 of the witches never came home. They vanished into the darkness they called home. Some burned, some crashed, some simply disappeared in the snow. Their commander, Yevdokia Bershenskaya, survived the war. She led them from the first day to the last. She ensured that the 588th was the only women's regiment to remain exclusively female. From the pilots to the mechanics to the loaders, they never let a man touch their planes. History tries to forget women in war. It tries to push them back into the margins. But the night witches refuse to be forgotten. They prove that courage has no gender. They prove that you don't need the fastest plane to win the sky. You just need the nerve to fly into the dark and turn off the engine. So the next time you hear the wind whistling through the trees at night, listen closely. It might just be a witch on her broom.